Good evening, good morning, namaste. I'm very honored to be a presenter at this event with respected academics, faith leaders, and other participants. I am connecting to you from Calcutta, from India, but originally I come from Eastern Europe, from Moldova and Poland. And just a few days ago, in Mumbai, in India, we attended a premiere screening of documentary film entitled Walking with M, based on the Walk of Hope led by Sri M, a spiritual teacher, social reformer, educator, author, and global speaker. To spread the message of peace and harmony, Sri M led the Walk of Hope in 2015 and 2016 to Kashmir, through India, and spanning 15 months and 7,500 kilometers across 11 states of India, and reaching out to more than 10 million people. His activities are very much needed in the world right now. And actually, being inspired by Sri M, I have been thinking whether March for Peace and the March for Hope is possible in our part of the world, in Eastern Europe. Eastern Europe is also rich in diversity, with various languages, religions, with ethnic and national groups, such as India. For many years, Europe consistently had been named the most peaceful part of the world by the Global Peace Index. The index, compiled by the Institute for Economics and Peace, based in Sydney, Australia, measures three broad categories: societal safety and security, ongoing domestic and international conflict, and militarization. It measures the presence of or absence of violence, fear of violence, and unrest. And several of the world's most peaceful countries were based in Europe. Nevertheless, according to the Global Peace Index from last year, the war in Ukraine had a significant impact on global peacefulness. The impact has been felt in sphere of the environment, the global food supply, and a general rise in tension between nations, between neighboring countries. And Eastern Europe is an example of where changes in one country have led to a large decreases in peacefulness in neighboring countries, such as Poland, Moldova, but also other countries. And Europe, and particularly Eastern Europe, is less peaceful now than it was 15 years ago, 10 years ago. And the impact of war in Ukraine continued to be strongly felt across the region, and mostly in Eastern Europe. And it impacted all pillars of positive peace, including good relations with the neighbors, acceptance of rights of others, free flow of information, and high level of human capital. Ongoing war in Ukraine is the largest war in Europe since the Balkan Wars, United Chechen Wars, and armed conflicts in post-Soviet countries such as Transnistria in Moldova, Nagorno-Karabakh, or Abkhazia. Both Russia and Ukraine are now ranked amongst the 10 least peaceful countries, according to Global Peace Index. According to the United Nations, also, there were more than 6 million refugees from war-torn Ukraine recorded globally by December last year. And most of them, they found refuge in the region of Eastern Europe. In Poland, more than almost 2 million refugees from Ukraine applied for protection. In Moldova, which is a much smaller country with around 2.5 million population, more than 100,000 refugees were recorded up to date. And I'd like to stress that refugees are not a uniform group. Among them, there are differences in age, gender, and other characteristics, such as ethnicity, religion, and disability. Ignoring these diverse identities can bring inequality and limit opportunities. The refugees from Ukraine include members of ethnocultural minorities, such as Roma, Jews, or Muslims, indigenous people, such as Crimean Tatars from Crimea, who are Muslims, and migrants from Africa and Asia. Around 90% of refugees from Ukraine are women, children, and young people. Moreover, almost 1 million Russian citizens are estimated to have left Russia, including those who object to the war and political refugees. And this group includes members of ethnic and religious minorities, as well as indigenous people. The war has affected minorities from Russian territories, such as Buryatia and Dagestan, who have been disproportionately represented among victims. Minorities and indigenous people are among the most vulnerable groups impacted by current war in Ukraine, but in the region and also we know globally during other conflicts. And all this brings significant relevance to peace building and mediation initiatives in our region. And we know that mediation as a learned skill is considered an important tool to develop dialogue between various groups, contribute to accountability processes, and prevent escalation of violence among others. And it plays important role in conflict management in the process of dealing with the past. And the process of dealing with the past is considered as complex and holistic approach as proposed by Swiss Peace, which includes the right to know of individual victims and their families, the truth, but also the collective right of society to know the truth about atrocities and perpetrators, the right to justice and the duty to investigate and criminally prosecute human rights violations, the right to reparation and the guarantee of non-recurrence, which combines both initiative addressing root causes of conflict and developing sustainable peace. Thanks to their multiple identities and intercultural competencies, members of minority communities and indigenous groups can be among first intercultural mediating actors as messengers of peace and dialogue, reaching out across the boundaries of group divisions and hostility in our region. And diversity is an empowering factor in the context of common history, of coexistence and conflict, and the process of dealing with the past itself. Mediators, we know, they address human rights issues, from humanitarian issues, such as the demobilization and reintegration of combatants, and the return and resettlement of refugees, to deeply rooted historical disputes. And we know the history in our region is very complex and is very challenging. So in the context of the ongoing war in Ukraine, I would like to present several examples of pro-peace nonviolent initiatives by minority and indigenous leaders who started cultivating their multi-ethnic identity and use it as a resource for nonviolent resistance to Putin's war. Posters and flyers with messages of peace in minority and indigenous languages by Udmurt, Chuvash, and Tuvan and other groups in Russia. These are minority indigenous groups in Russia. So they use their own language, which probably is not understandable to police and to other people who will put them to prison for expressing nonviolence. So they use language their own. Messages explaining the real cost of a war and discouraging from joining the military in minority and indigenous languages. And we know that many minorities are sent to the war. So free legal advice to help military people, soldiers, to terminate, to stop their contracts. For example, Buryats at the army in the current war in Ukraine. Artistic performances, music and literary expressions in indigenous minority languages, such as Udmurt, but also minorities and indigenous groups started thinking and they're referring to their roots and thinking from history, how their communities dealt with difficult questions in the past. So it's also very interesting how the war had impact on these minorities. Joint readings of texts promoting nonviolent message, such as Gandhi and Leo Tolstoy. Food for peace. And for example, in Warsaw, in Poland, a Crimean Tatar family, our friends, opened a Crimean Tatar minority restaurant in Warsaw, promoting their culture, their identity, their history, and peace also, organizing different meetings and spreading the ideas of intercultural dialogue and peace. Our colleagues, Memorial Human Rights Society from Russia, last year Nobel Prize laureate, plans and organize, for example, a pro-peace action on the 23rd of February. And it is the day when Russia celebrates Russian army. So it's a day of Russian army, Russian military. So on that day, we organize a nonviolent action to promote peace. Our organization, my organization, I'm a member of the Never Again Association, is also promoting pathways to peace methodology, to seek win-win solutions to conflict among people of different backgrounds, including refugees. of different backgrounds in Warsaw, including also refugees such as migrants from Africa and Asia who came from Ukraine. The methodology has been developed by educator and Rotary member Kati Surkin. Also, the cross-border activities of Ecoterrors International Environmental Association of River Keepers in Moldova and Ukraine in conflict mediation are crucial. It is created by environmental NGOs, shared by Moldova and Ukraine to help and advise authorities and population to manage the river in a sustainable way, using integrated river basin management approach. It unites 38 NGOs members. And its activities range from joint mixed environmental summer schools, expeditions, and leadership programs for young people of the region in conflict, including minorities and refugees. They facilitate dialogue between populations of regions in conflict communities and conflict between elites and communities through joint activities and addressing common challenges, for example, environmental, taking care of river in cross-border regions of conflict, strengthening local organization for conflict transformation and reconstruction, developing leadership skills, cultural sensitivity and creativity among mixed group of young people from communities in conflict, including and particularly minorities and refugees. Important for development dialogue in conflict resolution, and advising governments and interstate organizations in the process of mediation. So these are just very few examples showing the diversity and creativity in mediation are a huge resource for nonviolent resistance to war. And we can see it now, it's happening also in our region. And minorities and refugees, they have expertise and experience which should be integrated into various initiatives in project and should be also taken into account by mediators. Because as I said, it is a great resource that can be used. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you very much for all things. I will leave last couple of minutes for Chaitanya to handle the matter.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for your remarks. And I thank all the respected panelists who have enlightened us with their thoughts. So we have Dr. Gandhi with us, who has been, very attentively listening to everyone speaking. So I would request Dr. Gandhi to make his remarks also if he has any. And I request the rest of the panelists and members to have their questions in the Q&A session.
Before the question answer session begins, I would like to express my gratitude and joy. The way my friends explained the problem of violence and their own strategies to tackle. So I'm delighted that non-violence lovers from across the world are united online. Physically, it is impossible for us to travel such long distances. But online, we can have the same joy of meeting and greeting one another. So I hand over the reins to our moderator, Arvind Vora. So please entertain questions and answers, and let us continue the dialogue.
I thought I saw a couple of questions on online, wasn't it? There were 2 questions or something.
Dr.
Chaitanya will do.
I looked at the questions. If there was something substantial, I would have included them. Dr. Panikar wants to speak. So, Dr. Panikar, please ask your questions or make your remarks.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to listen to this Wonderful session. All of the speakers really did very well. I have one particular question that I want to raise to Natalia Sineaeva-Pankowska. She has given a very international outlook, the whole thing. She has spent time in India, Thailand, and she is familiar with very much familiar with the problems of Eastern Europe. And she has given some examples of some small achievements there. That's great. But the big problem remains, and there is, I didn't see a solution that she has presented in terms of the big problem, the Russia-Ukrainian problem. Does she have any suggestions on the way we can move forward in that?
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your question. I very appreciate it. And I'd like just to tell that in our region, in our work in Eastern Europe, and I also like to say that I also have minority background, and also one of Udmurt group I have mentioned, my family also belongs to this group. So we don't look for, at the moment, for solution, because it's a very complex, yes, it's a very complex problem, very sophisticated, challenging. But we look for grassroots actions, which we need to identify and to go to resolve, to work with this. So it's very important to work with civil society. Okay.
Thank you very much for Dr. Panikar's question and Natalie's. Yes, it's when superpower are helpless, it becomes very difficult except undertaking grassroots movements, and we have to find the right leader to take it over. Any other question? Otherwise, we are on a very punctual opening and closing time. And we have to give credit to all the technically expert people leading by Chaitanya Dev and other people. Let's clap everybody for everybody's presentation, time, efforts, and knowledge. Thank you very much. Chaitanya Bhai, anything more? Just we conclude, right?
Yes, sir. So if there are no more questions, then I would start, thanking everyone like it's customary. So thank you so much, everyone, for being with us. And I take this opportunity to especially thank Sri Arvind Bora for graciously agreeing to, host the session for us for this. His understanding of the idea of political theory and practice, and his representation of Anuvrat Vishwa Bharati at the UN platform, and the kind of experience that he has made great observations which are very illuminating. At the same time, I would also we have Thomas Daffern wanting to ask a question, so I would just unmute you, sir. Just give me a moment. Sir, you are unmuted. Please. Yeah.
Yes, I'm just slightly confused. I thought we were going on till 5:30, so we then have more time for discussion. I think we have such a distinguished panel of speakers that we should use the opportunity. We seldom come together. I have so many questions, but I'm going to restrict myself to one. I'm talking tomorrow in the final plenary about peace. And I'm going to be talking about enlightenment. I'm going to be talking about solutions, and I'm a philosopher. I'm going to talk about enlightenment. And I want to ask each of the panelists who spoke in one brief word, if you are asked by a visiting angel to this planet to say, what is the enlightenment that we need to transform this planet from one of violence to one of peace, what ingredient would you add to the human mind or soul that is lacking at the moment? If you're offered one thing, what is that most important enlightenment factor? Anyway, that's the question. I really appreciate everyone maybe in the order you spoke, you know, starting with Jeremy. If that's, I think we have time.
So I was just reading from a book by Krishnamurti while waiting to go to a funeral for my friend's dog today. And what he said was, you know, we have on any issue, we hear so many isms, and people have thoughts in their mind about judging situations. And he said that those keep us in bondage. And what we need is to think that I don't know, just to say, I don't know. When we say, I don't know, because we really don't know anything fully 100%. And then that opens up a big space, a free space, new thoughts. Yeah.
Thank you, Jeremy. Yeah.
Next one, please, Professor Dr. Firi, please. In one word or small sentences.
I would answer in maybe just 3-4 words. Simplicity and honesty will make this world a better world. Simplicity and honesty will make this world a better world.
Thank you.
Yeah, Dr. Bartolucci.
We can't hear you, madam. You're still muted.
Yeah, I'm a peace studies scholar. So I'm working at the moment on the paradox that in peace studies, peace is not really contemplated. So peace studies scholar actually study war and conflict. So for me, the word we should promote is the reflection and reflection on peace.
Thank you.
I think Mr. Peebles had to leave, so let's go to our last panelist, Sineaeva, Natalie. Unmute yourself.
Sorry, did you ask me?
Yes, you are the last one because Mr. Peebles.
Thank you. So thank you very much for this question. And of course, I could mention many things now I'm thinking about and caring about. But I'm thinking now here in this context about intercultural dialogue and interfaith dialogue, which I think is very important for us. And tomorrow, for example, I'm going to Bodh Gaya, and I'm invited by our colleagues and friends, Buddhist monks from Bangladesh, with whom we are developing joint actions for peace. And I will spend some days there. It will be a very important time for exchange, for reflection, and discussing how we can work also for our region, how they can contribute and bring the knowledge as Buddhist monks, for example, in Eastern Europe, because in war in Russia, I just would like to add one point, there are also many Buddhists who are fighting, like Buryats people, they're sent to the war and they're Buddhist. So we could think what we can do together to bring peace and use intercultural dialogue and interfaith dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
I have one question from Dr. S.Y. Bowland, who is one of the panelists in the next sessions. So she's asking, how soon can we gather to create a plan and bring forth the reality of a virtual university serving all ages for the benefit of sustaining and co-creating a world well-informed on non-violence, justice, and peace with reparative resolutions with a continuum of strategies for enhancing humankind relationships and model the same? Or does one exist? So if any one of us wants to answer, among the panelists or the attendees, they can raise the hand and they can speak.
Well, if nobody is volunteering, I will just share my ignorance or wisdom. I think question is pretty long, and it is of a kind of more practically reinventing United Nations, where right now the five major power holding the veto and not allowing any practical, realistic, peaceful solution. So I don't see in horizon anything happening, but like Natalie said, that in indigenous languages you create a environment where everybody feels somewhat active. So we have to continue this dialogue, and just to let everybody know that this is 11th biennial conference we have. So we all are doing our little part at a time. And even if I were Bill Gates with all my money, I wouldn't think that I will recreate another United Nations modernized. So we have to just take a small step at a time, and hopefully our next generation and generation after next will not have to hold the panel session like this. Thank you.
May I?
Yes, Dr. Panikar, you can speak if you have a question or a remark.
Yes, I have. Dr. Gandhi has really pointed the direction for us to go. And the question that Sri Dev presented is also very relevant. How do we move forward? Tomorrow, I'm going to make a presentation at about the same time. There, what I'm trying to say is that we had to start from ourselves. Instead of large organizations like United Nations, we start from ourselves. That is self-management with synergy. And there is a way we have been attempting to do that. The change has to take place within us, from each of us. And instead of looking at the big problem as a problem there to be solved by large organizations, including the governments, perhaps there is a way we can transform people's attitude towards their own life, towards their living together with others with synergy. And in that process, the transformation takes place. For example, I was talking about the Ukraine-Russia problem. If I make a very bold attempt here, the problem was created by posturing unnecessary risks that are taken by the countries themselves without really helping themselves. If the approach had been in a more conciliatory manner right from the beginning, this would not have happened. I don't want to name anything particular. The threat to Russia through the presence of NATO in their own country, which was once upon a time their own country, that is Ukraine. They are the same people. And that threat, very close to themselves, would be resisted by them, which is very obvious. Instead of that, if Ukraine took care of its own interests without really going on from larger organizations for its own security, things would not have happened this way. I don't want to take any sides on this issue, but a very objective way of approaching the problems. They themselves have problems. When they were separated, they had problems. Definitely, they are the same people. They had the same thing, aspirations and all that. But when they were separated, no, actually problems arise, like a division in a family. So when that is there, if they remain the outlook, if the outlook remained like a family, they would have solved the problem without other people getting into that. So the suggestion that another United Nations is a solution. League of Nations was a solution once upon a time. United Nations became an aspiration for solution, but nothing happens. The things have to happen from within. So tomorrow, I would like all of you to participate in a little discussion on what I'm going to suggest. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Panikkar. I would request Dr. Daffern to make any remark if he wishes to.
Yes, I'd like to reply going back to Sai Boland's question about an online university for peace. This is something that I've been interested in for about 25 years, since I worked at the University of London to create a Peace Studies Institute. I tried to organize through IPRA an international network of peace studies institutes, and I have been very mindful of a number of, let's say, alternative universities that exist. There's the Ubiquity University, Sophia University. I created the Global Green University in 1999. I've been watching with horror. Academia has become more and more militarized. In the UK, the Ministry of Defence has given £100 million of money from arms companies to foster research on campuses, which all have a military outcome. Peace studies is the Cinderella of academia. Most people that are interested in nonviolence, work from one grant to another. I would really love to see us, for instance, maybe we could do this with Anuvibha, apply collectively all the peace studies departments of the world and the nonviolence centers to create an alternative, an online university of nonviolence. Why don't we ask Zoom for, $1 million or whatever to launch the thing, and have meetings like this one every month involving academics from all over the world? I think we're sad we couldn't go to India in person, but maybe this is an opportunity, a window, because the quality of people that have come to this conference, it's heartening. And I would like to thank everyone who spoke today, and, let's do it. That needs some thought. I'm happy to help. I'm supposed to be the academic sort of advisor for this conference, so I would certainly recommend that. And thanks for the question, Sai Boland.
I'm sorry, who has been speaking right now?
My name is
Professor Daffern.
Sorry?
Thomas Daffern. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I'll put it out. Okay. Could somebody send it in chat? Because I'm not a panelist. I can't send her chat. But so I'm speaking tomorrow. My name is Dr. Thomas Daffern.
Okay,
and I'm the academic advisor to this conference as a whole. It's a pleasure to meet you. Thank you.
I'm based in Pisa, in Italy, and we have an international peace research institute, but I'm working toward the establishment of an independent institute on peace and non-violence. So I'm very interested in your proposal, and I would like to keep in touch.
Okay, let's all keep in touch.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And when you're in Bodh Gaya tomorrow, Natalie, can you please give my love? I was also in Sarnath and other places, and I'm going to be talking about enlightenment tomorrow and what that means for peace studies. So give my love to Bodh Gaya.
Incidentally, Professor Daffern, I am from Sarnath, the place yeah. So I kind of resonate with you. Nice to know that you've been.
If people don't know, it's where Buddha first started teaching. After enlightenment, he went there and began his teaching. And one of the questions I'm going to be asking tomorrow is, after enlightenment, what next? I think we should organize a virtual University of Nonviolence and get all the enlightened people on this planet to get involved from every continent: Africa, Asia, the Americas, Europe, etc. If not us, who? That's it.
Great. So very briefly, I would request Professor Seligson to say something. He raised his hand.
Yes. I would like to propose a world kindergarten for peace. That That's when we're very little, even in the womb, that's when the seeds of peace are planted. And very early after, the seeds for anger and war and division are planted by parents. So maybe it'd be an extension of the Children's Peace Train. Go to every country in the world and ask the children from every country in the world, what does peace mean to you? And draw a picture and share it all with everyone in the world. Let the children teach the adults.
Okay.
Well, there are two small scale experiments going on. Those who are in India and near Rajasthan, where Dr. S.L. Gandhi's Anuvibha is based, there is a kindergarten school for promoting peace, Raj Saman. And those who have gone there, they really get very impressed. And here in the capital of the world, New York, we have the Peace Art competition for last 25 years to promote peace at the youngest age. We may not see the fruit, but we have to plant the seed right now. And I just want to warn the people who want to take the advantage of technology for online university that we have to make sure that we don't create another veto for the technology company that can destabilize online university, whether it's Amazon or Microsoft or whatnot, So be careful.
Professor Jeremy's selection has already been to Children's Peace Palace, Rasam. There he led Children's Peace Train. That was the project that he had launched at that time. And since then, he has been carrying this message of Children's Peace Train to different countries. And I met Professor Jeremy Selection in the year 1995 when he was professor of English at a university in South Korea, Seoul. So many of my friends who I see now or who I will see tomorrow have supported our mission of non-violence very wholeheartedly, and we are working together. So Professor Selection has been participating in our international conferences for the last many years. And this time also, he was ready to come if the conference was to be held offline. But because of some unavoidable circumstances, we had to switch over to online conference in place of the offline. So, however, I have met him, so I feel very delighted to see him again. And my friend Arvind Vora has been with me since 1998, when Anuvrat Global Organization was accepted for association with United Nations Department of Global Communication. So he agreed to be the representative of Anuvibha. And since then, he has been kind enough to help us and serve us there in USA, and has always extended moral support as well as academic support. So all these friends and Dr. Thomas Daffron also has been with us for a pretty long period. I would say that his association with Anuvibha goes back to the 90s. So we are all fellow travelers, and we have all one mission, and that we are going to fulfill single-mindedly with dedication and deep commitment. So I'm so happy to see friends from Europe, from Africa, from USA. We are only 5 or 6 people, but we come from so distant places. So the technology makes it possible for us to talk, to share our visions and have dialogues. So this was not the situation when I started organizing international conferences in the year 1998. The only way to meet friends was through correspondence and through the post offices. That was the only thing. We had no internet, no fax machines, and no computers. We had just a typewriter, and with that we began, and we have continued our journey till today. So thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you.
Dr. Daffin, you want to say something?
Yes, I just wanted, since we only have about 5 minutes left before we end, I wanted to ask Natalie, who spoke so well and movingly, to tell us a bit about your own life story. Like, you're obviously from the region. You said you were from a minority group within, I don't know if it's Moldova or something. Just tell us how you got involved in this work for nonviolence, because you're a woman of great passion. And you might like to just tell us briefly, you've got, about how you got involved and why. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. So actually, I was born in Moldova, and the country between Ukraine and Romania. And actually, my family is not from Moldova. I'm a very mixed background, and my mother and my grandfather, he belongs to Udmurt group, a small indigenous minority group in Russia. And my father family comes from Kazakhstan, from Central Asia. So I have very rich background, and being in Moldova as minority, but also being, if I go to Russia, I'm also a minority. So I decided to work in the field. First, I started to work on the Holocaust, which is a very important topic in our country, in our region. And when I came I started thinking about other genocides and why do they happen still after the Holocaust. And I was very grateful to Rotary International. Rotary International is the largest humanitarian organization who is working on peace and promoting positive peace, for giving me a fellowship at Chulalongkorn University. And it was a groundbreaking experience for me, because thanks to this, I also started working in Asia, and I met friends and colleagues in Asia, in Bangladesh, in Thailand, and together we were working for peace and for interfaith dialogue. And of course, in Poland and Eastern Europe, so we combine our experiences from Asia and from Europe together. Thank you.
Fascinating. Thank you very much, Natalie. Yes.
All right, so we are at the juncture of closing this session. It was a very informative session, and all of us got to know so much about each other and the resolve to take this baton forward for peace and nonviolent action. I have an answer for Dr. Daffin, which I would write to him. What to do for if I were born again, and what thought should enter my head, I would do that. So I take this opportunity to thank all of you. And we have other 2 plenary sessions coming up. Indian Standard Time tomorrow morning, 9 to 11, and 8 to 10. So please be with us. We'll have more illuminating speakers coming up, such as Dr. Daffin and Dr. S.Y. Boyland. So request all of you to join, be tuned with us. And with that, thank you so much, and have a great time. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's clap for each other. And I request Rachit to stop the live streaming. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Yeah.